Another quick note, while we get started, if you find that My Maps is not available in your school account in Google Drive, your administrator actually needs to turn that function on under additional Google services. So talk to your friendly local IT person. I actually have this pulled up in an admin panel so you can kind of see what your EDU domain administrator needs to do. And so there's a little box here that says Google My Maps. It needs to be turned on for everyone. And in this presentation slide deck, I gave you the little notes. So make sure that you take a look at the notes to say, okay, I don't quite remember what she said, but they need to look for additional Google services in the admin panel and then on for everyone, or they can pick specific organizational units. And if you're not sure what I'm saying, that's okay. Show them this screenshot. How are we doing, everyone? And I have a tendency to talk a little fast. So I think I'm seeing some head nods. We're doing okay. Okay. So what I would love to do before we get Mappy is often when we are in an online space, we don't get a chance to make connections. So I've asked June to put us in some breakout rooms. You will be with a small group and just say hello. Let people know where you're from. If you're a little shy, you don't need to turn your camera on. That's okay. My prompt for you is, how do you prepare rice in your home? So do you have a special way to cook it? What do you eat it with? I'd love to hear some feedback in the chats. So if you're not sure what to say, let's talk about how you prepare rice in your home. So we're gonna go into breakout rooms and say hello, meet some new people, and then we'll come back as soon as you're done and we'll get started and we'll get Mappy. If you would like to include that answer in the chat, how do you prepare rice at home? I'd love to be able to read those while we're waiting for the breakout rooms.
Here we go. We're going to go to the breakout rooms.
Well, I just pop it in the microwave.
Oh, I love it. That's my favorite kind as well.
Yeah, piece of cake. Takes just 90 seconds, I think it is.
Right.
Yeah.
Mine's usually frozen, so I think it takes a little bit more. I should be ashamed to say that I keep my rice in the freezer.
Aside from the rice, seriously, I'm teaching all history this year, so this getting Mappy should be able to work in well.
Oh yeah, you're gonna love this. There is one of the slides at the very end. I put out 2 links for historical maps. So somebody has put together, oh, they're amazing. Oh, I lost Dan.
Wait. You know what? They're going to come back to the main room.
Okay.
But
oh, that's fine.
Hold on a second. I will do this. They're going to go, what are you guys doing?
And we'll just have them put it in the chat. Or if somebody wants to pop on camera, that's great too. Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to give them a chance just to, yeah, say hello.
They're going to go, wow, that was fast. That was fast.
That is okay. So feel free to open up chat. Stan and I were joking earlier about just popping rice into the microwave. Any means, but some of my students have amazing dishes that they serve with their families. And as we're waiting for everyone to kind of pop back in, this question is fantastic for asking the right question. Right? I mean, you don't eat rice, and that's okay. That is the perfect, Brenda, thank you. No, that is the perfect response because there's no wrong answer. There's only the right question. By asking students, How does your family prepare rice? We're taking in their cultural backgrounds. We're taking in their experiences. So there is no wrong answer. And oh, Instapot, of course, I own one of those too. Amazing, right? And so I just wanted to be able to let us get a connection. I'm sorry that we popped out of our rooms too fast. Hopefully you got a chance to say hello. And the right amount of water is when you stick your hands in the pot. I absolutely agree with that. Oh yes, absolutely. So thank you for sharing. But I will definitely be opening my first day of class with my students and asking, how does your family prepare and eat rice? So far, nobody has said they have it for breakfast yet or for dessert. Okay, so please ask questions in the chat. June is fantastic. She's moderating. And if I have an opportunity, I'll open up chat. We can answer those questions for you. But let's get Mappy. I'm going to walk you through the step-by-steps. I would love if you played along at home. That way you're not just sitting and listening to me talk this whole time. But let's go through the basics. I'll abandon this slide deck. I'll do it live with you. But if you're comfortable navigating 2 tabs and just listening to me talk, 2 thumbs up, let's go. So to find Google My Maps, you can be in Google Drive. You will click on that rainbow plus new button. You'll have to slide your mouse all the way down to more, slide it over to the right, and then find Google My Maps. You are quickly going to find out if your district has Google My Maps turned on. Something that you can do is if you do not see My Maps turned on in your EDU domain, you can check out your personal Gmail if you have one. Now, I don't recommend using your personal Gmail in class with your students for safety and privacy reasons, but just in case you wanted to play along and it's not currently turned on for your domain, that option is available for you. So I'm going to do this live inside of Google Drive so you can see what that process is. So here's my rainbow new button. I'm going to slide down to more. I'm going to slide over, and here is Google My Maps. So I'm going to click on My Maps, and it will load a basic map. If this is your first time seeing it or your students' first time seeing it, don't go straight into your curriculum. Give them time to find themselves, because the first thing the kids always want to know is, where am I on the map? And they will come up here into the search bar and immediately start typing in their address. So I wanted to give you a heads up on that one. It is pretty universal no matter what grade range I've used My Maps with. They want to know where they live, and they want to find, I've had kids go, oh, there's the McDonald's that we eat at, because they discover features inside of My Maps. So that's way number 1, using Google Drive. The second way to get there is to type in the URL mymaps.google.com. So this one actually says google.com/maps, but it's easier for me to remember mymaps.google.com. And then you can click on this create a new map. So there's 2 ways for you to get there. Okay, so let's take a look at a brand new map. So you have up here untitled map, very much like Google Docs, Google Slides, Google Sheets. If you want to rename it, you're going to click at the top, right on top of Google Map, or untitled map, and you give it a name. I usually recommend that students include their name in some way, whether it's their last name or it's their first name, because as you'll see when we talk about Google Classroom and My Maps, I need an easy way to distinguish whose map I'm looking at. So generally I ask them to put in some sort of name identifier, right? And this description. If you are studying the American Revolution, you can ask them to put in a little bit of information about the American Revolution. If you are looking at ancient Egypt, are they focused on the Nile area? So that description is also really helpful. Okay, so I'm going to click save. So let's keep moving down the left-hand side. We're going to ignore this gray bar really quickly, and let's look at untitled layer. So a layer is a way for you to have stacks of information. And we'll get into multiple layers in a second, but I wanted to point out, there is this object, right? So I'm going to
We're
click on the
losing
3
you
olives.
periodically. Your voice is cutting out.
Oh no, it might be my internet connection. Thank you for letting me know.
Sure.
So untitled layer, 3 olives, and we are going to rename this layer. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and call this Google Camp, and I'll click Save. Still running down the left-hand side, there is a base map. So when I click on base map, there are 9 different options for me to choose from. And kids love the satellite view. That's usually the one I end up seeing. My particular issue with satellite view is if we are talking about historical context. As I zoom in, so over here in the lower right-hand corner, you have plus and minus, right? So you can easily zoom in. As I zoom in, I'm seeing things like state outlines and state names. And if we're looking at the 1600s, we didn't have state outlines and we didn't have state names. So having students recognize that the base map is important based on the topic that they're looking for, right? So I can do a light political map. You can still see states, you can still see names, you can start to see roads as you zoom in. So let kids kind of explore through the 9 different varieties. Okay, so there we go. We have our base map set up. I'm gonna go ahead and go with this topographical map. Now, how do you find a location? Where is the power inside of my maps? So let's go ahead and take a look. We're gonna see if we can find Washington. Now, your instinct is to hit the enter key when you type in a search. Fortunately, My Maps gives you a couple of different choices. So if you ask students to be patient as they type instead of immediately hitting the enter key, because I was looking for DC, I would have gotten the first item on the list. But if I was looking for Washington, North Carolina, I either need to type more information or I need to wait for that search to pop up. So another, one of my jokes is I'm looking for Springfield. There are a lot of Springfields. Where do the Simpsons live? We're not sure which Springfield is it. So I'm gonna go ahead and click Springfield, Missouri. Now there is a temporary pin when you do a search for a city, and it looks like it might be on your map. And this is where kids get a little bit confused. They think they have pinned a spot, but they have one more step that they need to do. So over here, just above the pin, there's a little button that says Add to Map. So they'll need to make sure to click on Add to Map to transfer that temporary pin that was over here on the left into a permanent marker. Good pun, right? No, okay. To place a marker and have it stick on the map. Right, so what else can we do? You can see that there are details from Google Maps. These are actually clickable links. And for our younger learners, sometimes they can get a little overexcited and they end up going to this .gov website, which is not a bad website to go to, or they can click on View in Google Maps. I find this to be a bit distracting. So I usually ask kids to remove. So there's a little button here, and that takes out all of the extra information that might distract our students. Okay, so great, Mrs. Johnson. I put a pin on the map. This is super exciting. What can I do? Here's where the magic happens. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit here. I have Springfield. I can see my latitude and longitude. So if you have any lessons that might address latitude and longitude, it's really helpful to get them to understand. The paint bucket. Oh yes, the paint bucket. So you have options. You are not stuck with the color or the symbol that Google My Maps gave you. So what I want to point out is it's great to be able to pick icons that might not be school appropriate. So I usually remind students to make sure that it's okay for the principal to see when you pick a different icon for your marker. There is a button called More Icons, and there are some really cool icons in here. There are also things that are not school appropriate. So just a heads up, there are definitely symbols that you might not want students to use on My Maps, but they will them to buy. So I'm gonna go ahead and pick, this looks like maybe, oh, as I slowly hover, it will give you the title of the icon, because I know the screen is very small and I do not have great eyesight like a 10-year-old does. So if I hover, I can see the skier that's walking, or hey, here's a Frisbee. So I'm gonna go ahead and select the Frisbee. And if you wanna get really fancy, for those of you that are like, yes, I've seen this before, custom icon, you can upload any picture that you want. So kids love that feature, they will find it. And so let me go ahead and change my Frisbee. Maybe I want to make that a little bit orange. And you can see that the marker on the map adjusts, as well as the legend on the left. So it's a really great feature about maps is students can personalize it. They can make those icons make sense for them. The next thing that I'd like to show you is the pencil icon. So what's so great about Springfield? I don't have the state listed currently in this title, and I want students to give me more information. So I'll click on that edit pencil, and I can do things like add the state, and I can give a description. So let's say that this was established in 1891. I would ask students to give me a solid 3 sentences. Why is this pin on the map? Why is it important for us to take a look at? Give me 3 facts, give me 3 areas of interest. So there is, a museum that is focused on civil rights here in Springfield, and there are 15 hamburger joints. Like, you just ask kids to do some research and use that pencil icon in order to add information. Okay, we're doing good so far? Okay, this one, the camera. Oh my goodness, the camera. So much goes into this. Kids will get down a rabbit hole for sure when they click on the camera, because they want to include all of the images. So I'm going to click on this little camera icon, and I can definitely upload pictures, but I don't have pictures of Springfield, Missouri on my device. Oh, here we go, Google image search. So you can pull just about any image from Google and have it be in your marker. So I'm going to do another search for Springfield. And I'm not even going to select a state. Oh, here we go. Lots of amazing pictures. So let's say that we were just talking about The Simpsons. I'm going to mark this picture. And can we do multiple picture uploads? Not yet. So students will need to pick one image, then click the select button at the bottom and wait for it. Do you see this tiny little plus button at the bottom of the image? There's also a very tiny trash can next to it. So if students accidentally selected the wrong image, they can delete it by clicking on the trash can. Or if they want to add more images, they can click that little plus button and easily select another image. Ah, perfect. So I got an error. Why can't I use this image? There are sometimes it is the wrong image type. Let's say that that one might have been a BMP instead of a JPEG, right? So if this happens, you just tell students to click that dismiss button, hit the plus button again, and try to select another image to be added into their series. It's like a carousel. So now I have 2 of 2. I can hit the little back button and see 1 of 2. I've had kids insert up to 10 images. They're like, okay, that's enough. So click save. And I have this fantastic marker. It gives me a brief introduction. I would have written more sentences and images. What a powerful way for students to demonstrate learning. They had to have done research. They had to confirm that those images were a good match. They got to select a marker. So there's creativity. They got to select a color. All right, I'm going to close this by clicking the little X. The pin does not disappear when you close out of the description. To get the description to pop back up, you just click on the marker and away we go. There we go. I had to actually click on it instead of just hover over it. So do you remember we were talking about layers earlier? And I said, let's ignore this gray bar. So I have Springfield, Missouri. If I wanted to add another pin, I just quickly type in, let's do now that will give me the temporary pin again. So I know it's temporary because it has this green color and it's not in a layer. So I'll have to click that add to map. And there we go, the process repeats. Remove the description, use your paint bucket to change the style, use the pencil to add sentences, and use the camera to give me images. All right, if I wanted to, I could add a layer, and I'm going to show you what this looks like. And now I can separate and I can add 2 more pins under a different topic or heading. So one of my favorite ways to use this is with something, say, like the Revolutionary War, so the American Revolution. So I could break this down into years. I could have 1774 and pin all of the important hotspots for 1774. I can make a layer for 1775 and then pin all of the hotspots or the places of importance for 1775. And that makes it easy for students to differentiate from a unit, a topic, a year. So many different ways that you can incorporate this into your curriculum. So that's the point of having a layer. Do you have to use them? Absolutely not. But if students want to focus on a specific area, region, time, layers are really, really helpful. Okay, so let's talk about a couple of other things that we can do with My Maps before we do a collaborative map together, because yes, audience participation is necessary. So up here at the top, we have our typical Google search bar. What I want to show you are there's a couple of extra buttons that are happening. If students accidentally pin a location and they want to undo their work, they have undo and redo. The hand is important to help you move that map around, because if they click on a different button, the mouse changes and they won't be able to move the map as easily as they hope they might. So make sure that you point out that hand. If you want to just randomly drop a pin without doing a search, this is the add marker button. So all I have to do is click on the map and it calls itself point 1. They will need to rename the point 1 and provide a description. They can opt to add an image if they like. But let's call this, it's completely off balance, but we're still going to call this Kansas City, right? There we go. So I can easily just drop a pin anywhere on this map using the add marker feature. Okay, the next thing that we can do is draw a line. I love using this for math, as well as the ruler to measure distances and area. So let's find out what that looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and click on draw a line. And I have these 4 options here: add a line or shape, do a driving route, a biking route, or a walking route. Walking would be very interesting, especially from a historical perspective, but I'm just going to cheat and do a line or a shape. How does this work? So do you see that my mouse has changed to a pointer? It is no longer a hand that I can grab and adjust the map. So that's why I have to click the hand when I'm done. So I have this little crosshair pointer, and I want to find out if I can make a shape. So I'm just going to click, hold, and drag, and let go. So now it has drawn a line for me. Even though I have let go, I am no longer click, hold, and drag. I'm just dragging my finger over the trackpad. I can draw a line to anywhere else, click once to have it stop drawing, but then I'm going to keep moving. So click, hold, and drag to begin. When you let go, just start moving the mouse and click once to have that line stop. When I am done, I am going to make a little square here, and it automatically names that shape. It recognized it as a polygon. Okay, oh, your mind is spinning now, right? Like, okay, how can I use this? One of the ways that I have done this, and you'll see a screenshot coming up, is I like to go over to some of our square shapes or states that are easier to outline. So we're looking at Colorado and Utah, a little bit easier to draw, Wyoming. And I ask kids to guess on the area of a state. And so we get a bunch of opinions and, kids shout out answers. We can put it in a Pear Deck or a Nearpod or a Padlet, have them write things down, but then we're going to practice. So we do that add a line or shape, and you're going to see my terrible outlining skills. So I'm going to try to outline Colorado. So granted, this isn't perfect, right? Because it's based on how we're drawing. And so it recognized it as a polygon 3. Look what happens in the description. Once I click save, it tells me that I've outlined 104,000 square miles. Guess what we're going to do next? We're going to our Encyclopedia Britannica. We're going to Google. We are going to a .gov website to find out how close our drawing was, to find out how many square miles, what's the area of Colorado. It also gives us the perimeter. So it's not just about geography, it's incorporating other elements of our curriculum. So I love using this with 3rd grade and 4th grade because we're constantly reinforcing that. And your drawings will get a little bit better with more practice. I tell the kids, delete it and try again if you don't like it. And then of course they can change, the color of that polygon. So instead of being a light gray color, now it's kind of a light purple color. They can still go in and do all of the things that they love about placing marker on the map. It's just, how can we use this? So a question that I like to ask is, let's take a look at a very, very large country. And I'm going to scroll a little bit. We've got Greenland up here at the top. And Greenland looks really big. How big do you think Greenland is when it comes to the United States? Do you think that, I see somebody on camera, right? Do you think that Greenland is the size of Texas? Do you think Greenland would cover all of the US? So we're asking students to look at perspective. So what I want to challenge you to do is outline Greenland with your draw a line or a shape, and it doesn't have to be perfect. Just let's go ahead and outline it. So I'm going to take my add a line or shape, and I'm going to make a very, very awful outline of a part of Greenland. So let's get started here. Yep. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just get a basic idea of, ooh, hi, there we go. Now we're cooking. It's moving really fast. Okay. You just have to connect all of your points to get it to recognize polygon 4 for me. So I'm going to call this Greenland. And of course, I want to change the color to green. Why not, right? It's Greenland. So I have this shape. And my question was, how big do you think it is? Do you think it's going to fit over the US? Guess what? You can click, hold, and drag. So not only do we have the square miles, if students are clued in, they can look up the square miles of the US. But I'm going to take the shape. Make sure that your hand is selected. And do you see it? I'm going to click, hold, and drag. Wait, what's happening to Greenland? What's happening? Why is Greenland shrinking? Oh, wait a second. Why did Greenland get so small? So there is forced perspective. When you look at a globe, it's stretched. When you cut a globe, it changes the perspective. So although Greenland looks huge, it's actually not that big. And having students understand that we're still, even though the world is flat in my maps, it's not actually flat. And it can really throw them for a loop. So I love having them draw shapes and compare states. Does, Rhode Island, how many cities can you fit Rhode Island in? How many Rhode Islands does it take to fit inside of Colorado? The other point that I want to show you to reinforce that this is not actually a flat map. One more time, we're going to draw a line and we're going to go from Virginia to Paris. Do you see what happens? So that line curves because it's following the curvature of the Earth. So although the world looks flat, Google makes sure that we know it's not. So just one of those fun features. One more thing. Oh my goodness, we only have 15 more minutes. There's just so many goodies that I love inside of my maps. There is a ruler that you can use. So if you want to measure the distance, let's say that let's go back to our American Revolution. And how long did it take people to walk? How far did they have to actually walk to get from Lexington to Concord? So you can use that ruler to measure distance. It is a temporary marker. So the ruler disappears very quickly. And so let me go ahead and click on that ruler and see my pointer changes again. I'm just going to click, hold, and drag. And oh, it's about 408 miles between these two cities. But I'll reconnect them. So you can use that ruler. The minute I click on the map, that shape disappears. So it is a temporary object. And I know that bums a lot of kids out because they really want that ruler in place. So just a heads up on that one. All right, now it's time for you to get Mappy, and I would love to know. So let me go ahead and scroll down here. We'll talk about student projects in a second, but I want to see your favorite vacation spot. So we talked about how to place a pin, how to make it fancy. So if you could join me in a collaborative Google map, I would love to see where you would rather be in this world. So the link is bit.ly - all caps TW, lowercase I, capital F, map, as in the world is flat map. And if you're in the slide deck, you can easily click on the map link. There's 2 different versions. So I'll leave the screen up just for a little bit. Go ahead and you can immediately drop a pin if you know exactly where you want to be, or do a search for it. Make sure you add to map, so that is not a temporary marker. Okay. And I'm going to pop into this live collaborative map really quick to see how we're doing. One of the tricks that I want to show you is that maps are not as live and as reactive as, say, a Google Doc. So when people are in a Google Doc, it's very quick and you can see it. Right now, my favorite vacation has not registered for me that you have made any pins. So I have to come up as a teacher and hit refresh if I'm using this in a collaborative nature. There we go. So 2 pins have been added. Yes, I would love to be in either one of these locations. I have not been to either. So you'll have to share what is amazing and special about them. And so that's just, I know that we have people working on their pins. They do not immediately show up. For you inside of this collaborative map, you also can hit refresh if you'd like to see what everyone else in the session has marked as their favorite vacation spots. Let me hit refresh again. And look at that. So many more have joined us. So this is an amazing way for your class to be able to make those connections off of one map. Marrakesh, oh, I haven't been there. Christchurch, New Zealand. Oh, so many places in the world that I need to go. Last summer was an amazing summer for me. It was something like 11 states and 7 countries. And I'm seeing all of these places that I have not been. So thank you for adding to my to-do list. So it's fun. Now, how did I set this up for you? Right, it is all in the sharing features. So if you would like to use a collaborative whole class map with your students, all you have to do is click on the share button and make sure that the map is set to anyone on the link with this link can edit. It is not easy in Google Classroom to get your maps as a template distributed to students. Unfortunately, make a copy is a bit of an issue. So what I ask students to do is I will share one collaborative map and then ask them to make their own map and either attach it inside of Classroom as an assignment. So when you hit that drop-down menu, and I have that here, as we scroll down, let me look for the little Classroom screenshot that I have. Students can use this add your work and they'll pull it from Google Drive because my maps are stored in Google Drive. So that's just another trick. There might be an extra step for your students to give you a map, but it looks exactly like you should expect it. When you open up Classroom, open up the assignment, there's this open in Google My Maps, just like you would see a Google document or Google slide deck that you have popped into Classroom. So that's one way to get these collaborative maps rolling. That you can insert them into Classroom, but we cannot make a copy, right? Okay, so let's talk about student project ideas really quick. I have done this with third grade classes. We were looking at libraries in other countries. So they had to locate that country, which was really important for their geographic awareness. And then they would type in one really interesting fact about that particular library, and then they would find images, right? So we're just asking for one thing from that student, not a bunch of pins on the map. And it successful because each student got to be able to present to the library and show it in their country. Now, could we have done that as a whole class collaborative map? Absolutely. And then everybody would have access to everyone's work. But for that particular classroom, it was best that everyone had their own map. Right, so another way is a polygon practice. I showed you what that looks like. Make some layers and let's look at perimeter. Let's look at size. Can you click, hold, and drag that polygon, and how big is it really? How does it compare to other states? Right, so fourth grade, very recently, Gold Rush routes. There were 3 possible routes for people to take in order to get to San Francisco. They had to pick a route and they had to describe what that person would go through in order to get to that route. And so they adopted a character and they talked about hardship. So there was so much research that went into putting in 3 or 4 points on the map. Right, and it was almost like Oregon Trail, you know, did you die of dysentery? Some kids got really creative with that. This project makes me laugh and I love to share it. We were reading Because of Winn-Dixie, and kids get a little sidetracked when we were looking for places to go. So they decided to add Wildwater Adventure Park into their map because that was much more interesting than places and locations in the book. So just wanted to show you a fun surprise. They gave me a picture of a cow for the dairy, and they really, really wanted to go to Wildwater Adventure. So I've definitely had some fails, but they've been delightful fails. I know the kids know where they are in the state of California, so it's amazing. How are we doing so far? Any questions before we move on really quick to Google Earth? Okay. So you have done me a tremendous favor and shown me your favorite vacation spot. So let me hit refresh one more time. Let's say that you did this with your students in a classroom, but they would do much better in a 3D space as opposed to a 2D space. So there is a way for you to get this quickly into a 3D space. How do we do this? So up here at the top, we have our 3 little olives. We are looking for something called a KML. And a KML file just means key markup language. It's what Google Maps was built on before it became Google Maps. And they never changed the extension. So if somebody refers to a KML or a KMZ, it's just the language that they used to code this. So we're going to export to a KML. It sounds scary, and it's not, I promise. We want the entire map. And I typically do not check any of these boxes. That is up to you, right? So I am going to click download. And while that's downloading, I'm going to pop open a new tab and I'm going to go to Google Earth. So that's just earth.google.com, or you could do a search for Google Earth. And I'm going to launch it. Oh, it downloaded as a KMZ for me. So now I'm going to force it to go into a KML. So let's do this again. I'm back at my title. I'm going to hit my 3 olives. I'm going to export and force it to be a KML. Sometimes it doesn't want to behave for me, so I'm going to make it. So down here at the bottom, you can see I've got a KML and a KMZ. I hope you can see the difference there. All right, so now we're here in Google Earth, and Google Earth is loading. Fingers crossed with the internet, it's going to work. Here we go. There is a marker that's called projects. So you'll click on that projects marker. We're going to create a new project, and I'm going to import a KML file from my computer because I downloaded it. If it happened to be in Drive, you could create it there. So here we go. Here is the KML from today. And it takes maybe 15 seconds to load all of your pins and your information. And now we have it in a 3D space. So I can click, hold, and drag. So there's a pin here. And I'm gonna roll the earth a little bit. Let's see, where else did we go? Nobody out in the middle of the Pacific so far. Oh, there's one or a couple. I can hit this drop-down menu here. It says Google Camp. I'm gonna hit the little drop-down arrow to open that up. And let's say that I wanna jump straight to this location. That map is gonna spin for me and zoom in. Is that not amazing? wow, it's really close up in that satellite view in a 3D. So we're waiting for the internet to load it for me. Okay, beautiful, wish you were here, right? So the step-by-step guide on how to transfer your 2D mind map into a 3D Google Earth experience is all there in that slide deck. And so that's pretty much the magic of mind maps. Let kids discover things around them first, let them play before you incorporate it into your curriculum. If you've got an awesome project and you want to move it into 3D, you can absolutely do that. I have a tendency to make hyperdocs when I'm using mind maps to make it easier for them to get to mind maps, particularly with my younger students that I work with. Having them in multiple tabs can be a little bit confusing as they get older. It works a lot better. But I am a huge fan of hyperdocs and hyperslides in coordination with mind maps to help set up those steps. So I just wanted to show you a quick example of that. And for our last couple of minutes, I know I want to be able to answer questions. In this slide deck, there are some resources for you to use mind maps with. So ESRI, ArcGIS, amazing. They have these geo inquiries. So you can spend 15 minutes looking at history, right? So ESRI, the link is in the notes if you want to get there. GeoGuessr, I used to love this game. It's no longer free for us. They now charge for it. But if you wanted to attempt to play it, GeoGuessr lets you try to, does what it says, guess the location based on what you see. The kids used to love to challenge each other. But I'm not a fan of using paid things unless I know I'm really going to use them. So you'll maybe want to check that out. The free version is called WikiWare. So you get a description, you place a pin on the map, and it'll tell you how close you got. And so it'll keep track of how many miles away your pins were. The most successful I've been is for 5 questions. I was only 500 miles off for all 5 questions. I was very proud of myself. And then another way is to make a tour. So students can use 360-degree photos to make what would appear to be a walking tour or a spinning tour. But that is a whole nother session, but a resource for you. Finally, historical maps. These 2 links, people have put in incredible work for students to be able to see historical maps with pins and with pictures. And so just kind of phenomenal. So thank you to David Rumsey and GeoReferencer for having all of these resources for us. The last item, sorry, this was the book that I dropped. This is a book that was published in 2018. So the lesson ideas are solid. The step-by-steps might be a little off because, as we know, Google is always in beta, but I still find myself returning back to this book when I want to do a lesson using any geo tool. It's amazing. The link for Amazon is in there. It is, I believe, $25. So if you just want to have a look-see on Amazon, kind of flip through it, you can see some of the pages. But particularly if you'll be doing a lot of map work, that might be useful for you. So let's go ahead, and I am going to stop sharing and see if there's anything specific that I can help answer.
Delaine, there was a couple questions. One was, is there a way to limit icons that students can use?
Unfortunately, no, they are available. I'm sure you found some of the more interesting icons. I usually ask students to not go too far into more icons. And so my rule is it must be school appropriate. And if I see that marker, we are going to have a little bit of a chat about why you decided that would be funny to use that. And it usually does not happen. They know I'm pretty serious about it, but I wish there was, I know.
Do you have a recommended source or book for hyperdocs?
Oh, the hyperdocs book. Kelly and Lisa, and I think it's Sarah is the third lady. They actually have a website. It's hyperdocs.co, and there is a book. I own the hyperdocs book. It has been so useful, especially their give one, get one. I will go onto hyperdocs.co and see if another teacher has already invented the wheel for me, so I don't have to start from scratch.
And the only other two comments was this would have been so fun with a read around the world in 80 days with my students' new lesson. And fourth grade
Yay.
teachers, did anyone say California mission projects?
I've done that too. It's so much better than the hand-built. I went to Michael's and put together the mission. I love it. Thank you for sharing ideas because I will steal them. I will steal all of them. So the read around the world, that's amazing. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I want to honor your time. It is 2 o'clock. Thank you for joining me. Feel free to connect with me, beg, borrow, steal with that presentation. Send me questions by email. Any way that I can help, connect with me on Twitter. Thanks, everybody.
Awesome. Thank you. Have
Thank
a great
you.
afternoon.
Take care.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Delaine, I just wanted to say that you were cutting out of like 4 times. You cut out a little, but not for a long period of time, but it was happening. Just wanted to put that on your radar.
I know. I'm brokenhearted when I think it was Stand Up popped on to let me know. And so I slowed down and hope that the audio would catch up with me.
Which I think it did. I think it did. So I think
Okay, good.
but I don't think they really missed anything, just to let you know overall.
Oh, perfect. So if anybody emails and has questions, just send them my way because I know sometimes that one step is
Absolutely.
Like, oh. Yeah.
I loved your session.
Thank you. Thank you
It's
for
very
moderating.
nice. Very nice. So nice meeting you.
You too. Have a good one.
You too. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye, everyone.